Glen, you talk about kind of the voices in your head. Is there a particular voice that kind of has like maybe haunted you more than the others? As far as like, is it like the self-critical one where it's like, maybe this song's not going to hold up, or is it a different voice, a different character in your head?
It's mostly self-criticism. It's I mean, you know, I think there's a combination of an addictive, indulgent part of me that luckily, thank God, it didn't like cocaine. But you know, once again, I'm like a fragile enough flower that simply drinking with any regularity, and I'm not talking binge drinking, I'm talking like a drink or two a night, I plummet, I tank. Yep. And so a little bit of addiction, heavy self-criticism, and like a kind of perfectionism, like I have to do everything right for everybody else to be okay. And then just a feeling of despair that I'm, you know, never going to get it together, that I drive everybody away and always fail at everything.
Yep.
And that can even turn, you know, and people go like, but Glen, you had a fabulously successful band at the age of 22. It was a long time ago, number one. And even when it was happening, I'm like, this is going to fall apart. I don't believe this. I'm going to get caught. And they're going to figure out that I don't belong here and that I'm faking it and that they think I'm something I'm not. And when the band broke up and when I couldn't get a record deal again, I just like absolutely cratered for years. Lost a good decade.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. There is that self-criticism where, you know, you hear that almost advice people give you, like, what do you got to worry about? You got everything going for you. And really, that's like the last thing you ever want to hear. I remember dating a girl early on who had like pretty severe bipolar. She was really brilliant, but just so tormented. And then like after I kind of would read into it more, it was like the number one advice I always read was, don't tell people how great their life is when they're feeling depressed, because that just makes you feel worse, you know?
I mean, it's weird because then you feel ungrateful and it's proof that you're a terrible person, that you have this wonderful life and that people love you and are showing up for you and you can't even be there for them. That's like the worst thing. Right. And so, I mean, that's why the first step is to let that part be heard. Like that's the thing. It wants to just be heard and not be judged, and other things open up. And it's a hard one to explain. I mean, depression ultimately cost me my marriage. And it's that thing of like, how do you show up for a person, you know, when you don't want to indulge the depression and you don't want to validate the victimhood, but at the same time, you have to hear the pain of it, because the pain of it's very real.
Yep.
And to like acknowledge the pain without indulging the story is a really fine line to walk. And I don't envy the people who have been close to me and had to deal with all of this.
And there is that artist mentality where you're like, you almost buy into your own depression or anxiety, where you're like, well, I'm an artist. This is what happens, you know, and you can almost like lean into it too much. And you're like, well, I'm an artist. I get depressed. That's what I do. And then you can kind of like make it your thing, which is a very dangerous thing that I've done in short spurts. And I've seen a couple of my friends and allies do in longer forms.
Well, and the thing there is, I like to think of it as that I have really high dynamic range, right? You know, it's the difference between like, you know, a little dynamic microphone and a Neumann 87 modified by Stephen Paul.
That sounds cool.
Call me for all your voiceover needs.
Yeah, nice.
And so it's the difference in, you know, well, dynamic range. I can go really low. I can go really high. I am familiar with, you know, it's the great thing about being an artist, right? You perceive beauty in such a piercing way. Ecstasy, love, like those are real and tangible. And there's a Thich Nhat Hanh poem called "Please Call Me by My True Names." That it's like, what is it? My joy is a spring so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is a river of tears so vast it fills the four oceans. It's like they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And so remaining open while not succumbing to despair in these sad stories, or not getting lost also in ecstasy. I have friends who are, once again, more on the bipolar side, who can also like, wow, when they're big, they're a little too big.
Yeah.
And it's exciting for a minute and then it's different.
Yep.
And so it's like, how can you contain all that dynamic range and, hold it from a solid center? And it takes a lot of practice. And I mean, in my case, the times when I've been good are the times like I'm not drinking, I'm meditating every day, I'm exercising. It takes a lot of like self-care and things to align myself. Mm-hmm. And when I let those go, the inevitable result is like a collapse into depression and self-hate. And it happens every time. And it's like, in the same way you can't like plant a garden and then go on vacation for 3 months and come back and expect to have a whole bunch of tomatoes waiting for you. You got to actually care for it